Hello, my name is Daniel Underwood and welcome to my polytunnel here in the southeast of the UK in Essex. So I'm making a video today showing you some seeds that you can plant during the month of May. So I know we are into May now, but it has been rather chilly, so the fact that this video is a little bit delayed is not such a big deal. So stay tuned and you can see some lovely things that you can plant at this time of year. I'm going to be featuring a variety of things in this video, some things that could be described as standard and some things that could be described as a little bit different, so there should hopefully be something here for everybody. Cucumbers. Now I'm growing several varieties of cucumber this year, Market More, Telegraph Improved and Early Fortune. Now this variety here is the exploding cucumber, and it's said that when the fruit is mature, when you touch them they explode and launch their seeds everywhere. Now it's also advised that when you do this you wear eye protection for obvious reasons. So there we are, exploding cucumber, and of course the more standard varieties as well. When initially germinating cucumber seeds, I like to use cell trays such as these. I put multi-purpose compost in. The brand I more often than not use is Home Base, and then I put them on an indoor windowsill like that, ideally south facing, and then they should germinate within about probably 2 weeks, something like that. They like a temperature of about 20 degrees C, which is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So they probably would germinate out here because we are getting relatively warm days, particularly here in the polytunnel. It does get warmer, but still getting cold nights. For example, tonight it's going to be going down to about 0 degrees C, which is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so relatively chilly. So make sure that you use your microclimates. And another thing I've found is rodents seem to particularly like cucurbit seeds, so things like squashes, pumpkins, cucumbers, courgettes, you get the idea. And of course, by germinating them inside, hopefully you don't have rodents in your house, and thus you're more likely to get a higher germination rate. Runner beans, nearly everybody loves them, so I have a variety here called Scarlet Emperor. It's a lovely red flowering variety. I actually planted these on the 28th of March. See, they're a nice size, and you can see just how healthy they do indeed look. So all sorts of varieties. I'll show you what I'm growing in a moment. Now with regards to these, you can see I'm growing them in cell trays such as this, and what I will then do is transplant them at a later date into the ground and grow them up canes. Now what is quite fascinating is, many of you are aware, we've had a relatively cold spring so far, and I planted these, as I stated, on the 28th of March, and these have endured quite a bit of cold. They've actually germinated out here in the polytunnel. We have had, temperatures down to around -2 degrees C, which is about 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and these are unscathed totally. And of course it must be mentioned that the temperature does bounce back quite quickly during the day, particularly here in the polytunnel, so maybe that's a factor. But anyway, you can plant runner beans now. Giant Bolivian achocha. So these produce relatively large vines of about 3 to 6 meters, which is about 10 to 20 feet. And the fruit are about 5 to 6 inches size, which is around 13 to 15 centimeters. And you'd grow these initially, I germinated this inside on an indoor windowsill, very much, in fact, identical to how you would initially germinate a courgette or a cucumber. Sweet corn. Now I'm growing varieties bicolour sweet corn and double red, and you can see they are looking very healthy indeed. I like to grow them initially in cell trays of multi-purpose compost, and these have endured the lower temperatures of recent days, no problem at all. In fact, they look unscathed. You can plant sweet corn now. Lettuce. This is variety Lolla Rossa, which I planted on the 28th of March, but you can plant that now, and you can see they are looking very healthy. I grew them initially in these cell trays, and you can see what it is a mixture of sharp sand and multi-purpose compost, and looks like, yes, a 100% germination rate there. All the year round is a great variety of lettuce, as is Little Gem Cos. The lettuce plants you just saw are germinated out here in the polytunnel. Okra or okra, this is variety Super Bindi, which is said to get to around 1.5 feet tall, which is about 4.9 inches, and bear fruit about 7 to 10 centimeters long, about 3.5 inches. So I initially germinated these probably about a month or so ago, something like that, on an indoor south-facing windowsill. Once again, home-based multi-purpose compost. Now I have had some questions about my okra, because some people are apparently struggling to grow it. Now this is the first year that I've ever grown okra, and I think that looks okay. Now I've done nothing specific with them, so the variety Super Bindi may just indeed be a good one, but when I water my seedlings, I do water with rainwater, so maybe that could make the difference. But if you're growing another variety and you're not having much luck, maybe Super Bindi could be a good one for you to have a go at. Beans, these are variety Cherokee Trail of Tears. Now check that one out. Quite a history attached to these ones. You grow them like runner beans. Now, I planted these on the 14th of April. You can plant these now. As I stated, treat them like runner beans. You can see I'm growing them in cell trays here. They've endured the recent cold temperatures out here, looking unscathed. So the Cherokee Trail of Tears beans. Soon, otherwise known as Japanese green or Japanese mustard spinach. So I planted this on the 11th of April. You can see looks very good indeed. It's said to be drought tolerant and it's fully cold hardy and a very nice tasting vegetable indeed. In fact, some of these I planted earlier in the season I've been eating already. So it comes into cropping very quickly. Scorzonera or Scorzonera. I'll let you check that one out. You can plant these now. I actually planted these on the 28th of March. These are cold hardy. I've got some planted here and I've also planted some in the no dig bed behind the polytunnel, and these have unsurprisingly grown quicker because it's warmer in here than it is in the raised beds. So Scorzonera, very interesting root vegetable. Check that one out. Watermelons. This is variety Crimson Sweet. I initially planted this inside on an indoor windowsill about 6 weeks ago. Watermelons like a temperature of about 25 degrees C, which is around 77 degrees Fahrenheit for germination. So this can be relatively challenging here in the UK to get this temperature consistently without a microclimate specifically for that. But what I'm going to do is show you something. In this windowsill propagator, I have watermelon variety Blacktail Mountain from the year 1977, developed by Glenn Drowns, and it's a US variety and it's bred for short seasons. So there we are. Now, I planted these on the 18th of April and they've been in these windowsill propagators like this with no problem at all, enduring the colder temperatures. So tonight, down to 0 degrees C, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, I've got every confidence that these are going to make it here with the protection of the polytunnel and this windowsill propagator. Aubergines, I have variety long purple aubergine here and check early here. Two early ripening varieties. You want a short season variety, that way you're more likely to get fruit. Kale, Nero di Toscana, is a nice variety, as is Westland Autumn and Red Russian. Bitter melons. I initially germinated these on the 14th of March, but you can grow them now. They are said to have beneficial health properties, but I'll let you do your own research on these as to whether they are suitable for you to eat. You would grow them like a cucumber. They like to grow up sort of string or up trellis, something like that. Do benefit from a nice warm microclimate, so I will be growing them here in the polytunnel. I've grown them with success before. I'll link a video down below of them last year. Bitter melons. This is perpetual spinach. I actually planted this on the 25th of February, but you can plant it now. Take a look at that. Very healthy spinach, really nice tasting vegetable, very versatile and very healthy. Dwarf beans, these are variety tender green. You can plant these now. You can get bush varieties such as these. You can also get climbing ones. A good variety I grew a few years ago was Blue Lake. Did very well with that, and that's a climbing variety. So planted these on the 28th of March. You can see how I grow them like that in cell trays, and they've done very well. One good thing about dwarf beans is they come into cropping relatively quickly, and you can also grow them in containers. So if you've got a small garden, whatever, dwarf beans could be a good one for you. Yeah, they're growing in them containers. So I've got two varieties. Paris Market, which is like a globe variety of carrot, a nice one to grow if you've got a very stony soil, and also James Scarlett Intermediate. So you can plant them now. I actually planted these on the 15th of February, and I initially germinated them in the polytunnel in these containers. So a little tip I picked up a few years ago, a chap told me about this, that if you grow your carrots either in raised beds or in containers elevated above the ground, then the carrot fly can't jump or fly onto them. Now I just looked that up to find out what the actual height is, and apparently it's about 60 centimetres, which is around 2 feet. So what I used to do was grow them in containers and then put the container on a bench, so that can be very effective. Broad beans, this is a variety called Scorpio, which I planted on the 28th of March. I prefer to grow my broad beans in containers such as this and then transplant out into the open ground at a later date. At this time of year, you could look into a variety such as Express, which is a fast maturing variety which is said to produce a crop within about 80 days. So look into variety Express, broad beans. Courgettes, all sorts of varieties. Kousa courgette, Black Beauty, certainly a lot of them. Squash, so I like to grow a variety of squash, summer squash and winter squash. A nice summer squash I like to grow is Benning's Green Tint. They're compact plants, you can grow them in small spaces. The plants are more like sort of courgette or marrow plants than they are like trailing squash plants. That's a good thing. They're quite nice looking as well, look like little flying saucers, so quite exciting. And a good winter squash to grow is Victor Winter Squash. I've grown this before as well, quite big squash, and they are long keeping. So squash like to germinate at temperatures of about 20 to 25 degrees C, which is about 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So to achieve this, an indoor windowsill is more or less what you want. Yard-long beans. Now these are a bush variety, quite interesting to grow, and I planted these on the, or this rather, only 1 out of 4 has got to this sort of stage on the 14th of March. So green bush, yard-long beans, otherwise called snake beans or sea-tail beans. Stick beetroot on that list. These are variety Boltardy. I'm also growing Cylindra and white albino beetroot. You can see I like to grow mine initially in cell trays and then transplant out at a later date. I do also straight sow them, but you can see I've grown these. Now a little bit of a warning, so we are still getting cool temperatures. So currently it's about 6 degrees C here, which is around 43 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to get down to about 0 degrees C here tonight, and that is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So certainly enough to damage, if not kill, a lot of tender plants. So be very careful indeed. So I'm going to show you some steps I'm taking to protect some of my more tender plants. So this Crimson Sweet watermelon is going back inside on the windowsill, as is this Achocha. Now the Exploding Cucumber will also be going back inside, as will this okra. So if you've got some tender plants you want to make sure you protect, what you can do is actually put them in polystyrene containers like that with the lid on. That way the frost won't get to them. I've had many of these plants out here for some time now, tropical and subtropical plants, tender plants such as tomatoes, aubergines, chilies, cucumbers, bitter melons, yard-long beans, etc. in these trays or containers, and they've come through quite fine. These garden storage containers also work effectively. You can see the lid there, so the lid just goes on over the top and that protects it from frost. I have an assortment of tomato varieties here, Gardener's Delight, Moskvich, Sungold and Later. And what I do is I just get my plant pot like that, put it over the top, and I find that that keeps the frost off. Okay, so down here I have my okra, my long purple aubergine, check early aubergine, and Marketmore cucumbers. Now, going to get cold tonight, as I stated, so what I'm doing is doing this, 1 over the top there, 2 over the top like so, and what I do is get my fleece and put it over the top like that. So if you're making an informed decision as to, you know, if you've got things outside which, you know, could be at risk from the cold, from the frost, and you want a little bit of protection, you could look into something like this. So anyway, yeah, there we go. Make sure you're aware of your local conditions. For example, if you're in a cooler part of the UK from here, you might be better off delaying a little bit, maybe talk to some gardeners in your local area, do a bit of reading, and above all, make your own decision on what you're going to plant out. But I've given you a few ideas and I hope they've been very useful to you. So I would like to know about what you've actually got growing already, particularly if you've been a little bit sort of risky on it. Maybe you've got runner beans out and they've been out for the last month and they're halfway up the canes, who knows. So anyway, comments down below. What microclimates are you using? Greenhouse, polytunnel, cold frames, tomato houses, whatever. I'm always interested in hearing from you. So thanks for your time and I shall see you in the next video.